Alright, today I'm going to do some color grading from the iPhone 16 Pro Max, footage from the iPhone 16 Pro Max, shot in Apolog inside Davinci Resolve on my MacBook Pro. So this is the clip. I'm just going to do one clip today. I shot this clip a couple of weeks ago on a trip to Chiang Rai, Thailand, Phu Chi Pha. This is, by the way, Phu Chi Pha mountain. If you want to visit a beautiful place in northern Thailand, I highly recommend to come and check it out. And as you can see, there's a lot of fog going on here. It looks beautiful, but I'm gonna try to do my best to make it look even better with color grading. So let's start. So first of all, I'm going to apply one of my node trees. I'm not selling these node trees, but I just have them to have a good starting point. And you can pause the video for 1 second and just, duplicate the exact nodes that I'm using if you want to replicate the exact workflow I'm using. But if you want me to sell these node trees, let me know down below. I might do it. So anyhow, I'm going to apply this Apolog node tree in here by middle mouse clicking on my mouse. And these are the nodes, nothing really complex. Let me make this clip a bit smaller. As you can see, it's a very simple node tree, nothing really complicated. All right, so first of all, what I have here is a CST in and then a CST out. And I am going from Apolog Rec 2020 to Davinci Wide Gamut Intermediate to work in the widest color space possible. And for the CST out, I'm going from Davinci Wide Gamut Intermediate to Rec 709, but this time Rec 709 Type A because I'm using a Mac display. If you're using a different display, you might want to use Gamma 2.4. Okay, then I have here a disabled node for noise reduction in case I do need to do some noise reduction, but in this case, I don't really need to do anything. Everything looks very clean to me. I mean, iPhone footage so far, at least from what I saw for the last 2 months of shooting with the iPhone, I haven't really seen really bad noisy footage from it. It looks always clean, but I still have the node in there just in case if I want to clean up the noise at night shots or something like this. All right, next I have here the exposure node where I adjust the exposure, and here I definitely need to adjust the exposure because it's too dark. I'm going to enable the waveform in here. So it is a bit too dark, although not clipping here in the shadows. Still okay in the shadows, it's a bit dark in here, but not too bad. And the reason for that is because I always underexpose my iPhone footage. So far, I find it to be the best workflow to preserve the highlights as much as possible. But at the moment, I am actually experimenting with slightly overexposing Apolog footage to see if it works better. But regardless, this clip was underexposed, so I am going to do something to bring back the exposure. And I think the tool that I'm going to use is going to be the HDR global wheel. It's very simple, my favorite tool to just, bring up the exposure, the overall exposure of the shot. So let's bring it up. Like drastically like this. This is too much, obviously. I'm always looking at the waveform just to make sure I'm doing everything correctly. And then I'm gonna go down, down, down until I'm happy, which I would say it's at one stop. Something like this. Nothing is clipping in here. Nothing is clipping in here. I got the details back in the shadows. Everything looks correct. And this is the before and after, before and after. And as you can see, the shadows still are very clean from the iPhone, even though I underexposed the shot. Like, it's super clean. If I would do this on my Sony camera even, I would have to do noise reduction. Because with Sony, you have to overexpose to keep the shadows clean. But with the iPhone, for some reason, it just, even if you underexpose the shot, it looks very clean in the shadows. All right, next I am going to adjust the contrast because it's a bit too flat. And my favorite way to add contrast is with the curves in here. But you can use the contrast slider in here. Do something like this if you want to, or the contrast slider in here. It's basically the same thing, more or less, just less strong than the slider in here, but the results are more or less the same. But I am going to use this tool in here, the curves, because it's my favorite way to add contrast. First of all, I'm going to enable editable splines to make the transition between shadows and highlights a bit more gradual. Then I'm going to take my black point, slightly bring it up because I prefer my shadows to be slightly faded. You don't have to do this, but I do it because I like it. I'm going to put it somewhere around here. Then I'm going to take this point in here and bring it down with the editable spline just to bring back the contrast. And I'm also going to take my white point, bring it down because I prefer my whites to be slightly compressed. Again, you don't have to do it, but I like it. And then I'm gonna bring back the contrast. And now it's all about playing with these 2 points, seeing what looks the best until the contrast is more or less good and also the shadows look good, the highlights look good, and so on. Yeah, I think for now I am happy with something like this, and of course later on if I change my mind I can always come back to this node and readjust the contrast if needed. So this is the before and after, as you can see. It just added a bit of punch to the shot. Actually, now that I'm seeing this, I am going to slightly reduce the white point in here and bring this up a little bit, just like so. So this is the before and after. All right, next is where I adjust my white balance, and the way I do it is how the colorist Colin Kelly does on YouTube. I learned this method from him. I'm going to leave his channel link down below if you want to check him out. By the way, he makes fantastic tutorials on color grading inside Davinci Resolve, and this is by far, in my personal opinion, the best method to adjust white balance inside Resolve. It's very easy, simple, and it looks very, very good. So first of all, this node's gamma is set to linear, and then I'm gonna go to my color wheels and only play with the gain wheel. This is how it works. If you want to know why, go and watch Colin Kelly's video on this topic. I'm gonna try to leave a link for it down below, but for now all you need to know, if you want to adjust the colors, you should only use the gain wheel to do so. So I used an ND filter in this shot from Freewell, and I know for a fact it has a red tint, and I can definitely see it, especially here. So first thing I'm going to do is slightly bring down the red, just like so. And also because there is a bit too much yellow from the sun going on here, I don't like it, so I'm going to do something to compensate, but I don't want to take out all the yellow away because then it will look unnatural. I still want to keep some yellow in the shot to make it look natural, but I am going to add a little bit of blue here, just like so, just to remove the yellow away from the middle part of the shot. I go too much like this. This is way too much, too magenta and blue, and then I'm gonna come back. Something that looks more natural. I'm gonna also decrease the red here, and I think that's it. This is the before and after. Look at this difference and how natural and pleasing this looks. It's so beautiful. Like, look at this in here. This is the before and after, It looks so pleasing. Also the skin tones, if you look at the skin tones, the hair in here, before and after, just, I don't know how to say it, just looks awesome. It looks like I would do it in camera on location. That's how good it looks. Anyhow, next is where I set the saturation, and I use the color slice for that because it adds saturation without affecting the contrast or exposure, as you can see. So I'm gonna go overboard and then bring it back to about, let's do 1.25. Okay, this is the before and after, Next is where I adjust the skin tones, but I don't think I'm going to only focus with this node on skin tones because skin tones are not really dominating in this shot. I mean, I do have skin in here and I am going to fix this if necessary, but I also want to fix the other colors in the shot, like the yellows, greens in here, and all this stuff. So let's do that. I'm going to use the color slice for that to target specific colors in the frame. You can also see what each wheel does in here. If you press this button in here, press and hold them in, you can see. So the skin affects this portion of the shot, the yellow affects this, the green affects this, basically nothing. The cyan affects this, this guy's coat, the blue affects this, also this guy's coats and stuff, and then the magenta in here affects this. You can also use the classic hue versus hue, hue versus sat, hue versus luma tools and stuff. But because I find it to be a bit more easy, I use the color slice. It's very quick and easy, all in one. Everything is displayed out for you, and it has most of the colors that I need to get good results. So first of all, let's play around with the colors of this mountain in here. And I think I'm gonna start with the skin. Just play with the hue. I'm gonna push it towards green just slightly. I'm also going to desaturate these colors a little bit, like 0.8. And I'm going to use this slider in here to add some color density to these colors, or basically make it darker. Not too much. Next, I'm gonna go to the yellow wheel in here, which affects these colors in the frame. And I'm gonna do the same thing, just slightly play around with the colors. Maybe desaturate, just to make it a bit more moody. Add density to these colors. Okay, let's also play around with the guy's coat in here. Desaturate it. Add density. And play with the color. Actually, don't need to touch that. It looks good as is in my opinion. But I don't like this. It's a bit too bright and too red. So I'm gonna go to the red here. And I'm gonna desaturate this. It's about here. Add some density to the color. And then play around with the hue. Warm it up a little bit. Not too much. And this looks much better. This is the before and after, before and after. As you can see, it looks a bit more balanced. The whole shot, the colors basically look more balanced in the shot, whereas before it was a bit too punchy in here, also in here, and in this middle part of the mountain. Now let's take a look at the skin in here. I'm gonna open the vector scope, select the qualifier in here, zoom in. Look at the skin, and honestly, the skin is good as is. As you can see, it's right in the middle of the skin tone indicator line. So I don't really have to do anything. It looks good as is. All right, next is where I add power windows to my shot. And here I can definitely add some power windows just to make the subject of this shot pop a bit more. And in my opinion, the subject, like I said, is this mountain in here. I want it to be isolated as much as possible from the rest of the frame. So first thing I'm going to do is fix this in here. It's a bit too bright and distracting. I'm gonna go to the end of the clip here. I'm gonna select the mask, select the pen tool, start drawing the mask. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm gonna increase the softness to about 25, the outside to 1. Then I'm gonna go here to the tracker and I'm gonna start tracking the shot because I have movement in the shot. Davinci is gonna do its AI magic. Not the best job, but it's gonna work just fine because I added a pretty strong fade in here. Okay. Next, I'm gonna go to my color wheels in here. Just bring down the gain to reduce the exposure. Let's go to a brighter part, which is around here. And I think that's it. This looks much better. This is the before, a bit too bright, and after, and also got some details back from here, as you can see, of these clouds in here. This adjustment before it was just white almost, and now you can see a little bit more in the background here, which is better. Another thing I'm going to do with this node, with the power window 1 in here, I actually should have started with the 1 and then 2, but regardless, with this power window, I am going to create a mask around this mountain in here. Again, increase the softness to about 25, outside to 1, and I'm gonna go to the tracker, start tracking. I'm gonna go to the color wheels, actually disable this to make it look a bit cleaner. Go to the gamma. Let's start with the shadows actually, with the lift. Increase the exposure in the shadows. Decrease the gamma to add back some contrast. And increase the gain. Just play around with this until I'm happy. Okay, this is the before and after, before and after. Yeah, this looks much better. The fog here is kind of crazy. Like it changes the exposure, but it looks beautiful. And I think the final node, the final window that I'm going to do here is around this white bright portion, and I'm gonna darken it a bit more just to make it pop. Basically, I want to make this mountain pop as much as possible from the rest of the frame. So let's add another power window, a parallel node, and I am going again to select the pen tool. Increase the softness to about 35. Let's do a stronger fade, the outside to 1. And again, I'm gonna go to the tracker and start tracking. All right, and now I'm gonna bring down the exposure. Start with the gain. Also the gamma here. Something like this, I think. This is the before. As you can see, a bit too bright, and after, it's actually too dark. It's too dark. Something like this, before and after. Yeah, this looks much better. Before it was just too bright and too dominating, which I didn't like. And now the mountain pops a bit more from this white portion. I'm gonna come back to the power window 1, which is for the mountain. And I'm going to increase the contrast a bit more on it. Something like this. Let's check it out. Yeah, it looks good. And just to show you what all these 3 nodes did, I'm gonna select all of them. And before and after, before and after. As you can see, now your eye goes here more than here. But because of these adjustments, the contrast suffered pretty badly and it looks a bit too dark. So I am gonna come back to my contrast node and I'm going to slightly elevate here this, increase the contrast. Then elevate this and also increase the contrast. Let's see now. Yeah, now it looks much better. Still a bit too bright in here, but it kind of supposed to be because the sun was right here, but it's much better than before in my opinion. Again, I'm going to select all of these nodes, before and after, before and after. I think it looks much better. Right, finally, I'm going to use Dehancer to add some, film touch to the shot. Let's enable this. The output is set to 50%. I usually use Dehancer at 50% because I don't really like how strong it can get sometimes, so I'll just use that. And for the film stock, maybe I'm gonna select this and that's it. Or actually, let's go to gold or hectare. Hectare kind of looks nice. I'm gonna play around with this push-pull AV here. Something like this. Film compression is enabled also, just to compress the highlights. I kind of like it, but if you're using the Dehancer, you can disable this to not touch the highlights in any way. For the print film, I'm using Kodak 2383. I'm gonna play around with this. Let's make it a bit bluer, slightly. Let's do like minus 0.5 or minus 1. Maybe we can increase the contrast to about 2. And let's do some adjustments with the color head. I'm gonna enable this. Just gonna take out some of the red. Just do minus 2. Play around the magenta green. And then yellow blue. Something like this. This is the before and after, before and after. And film grain, I'm not really sure. Let's see. Maybe I can enable this. I mean, it already looks kind of soft. So I'm just going to disable this, but I am going to use a bloom, which basically blooms the brightest parts of the frame, just to bloom the fog in here and also the skies in the background. I'm gonna use this preset in here, 65mm, enable this. I don't really see it's doing it much. Oh, okay, I can see here around this woman. Okay, this is definitely too much. Let's go to like 50%. Just a little bit of a bloom here around maybe the mountain here it's gonna be, and the clouds. I mean, not the clouds, the fog. All right, and this is the before Dehancer, after Dehancer, before Dehancer, and after Dehancer. All right, finally, I have here this node for adding sharpness, and I've already set it to like 49 because that's the number that I usually start with. I never go below 48. I usually do either 49 or 48. And in here, let's see, this woman is looking at me, quite funny. So let's go here and yeah, just to keep it soft, I'm gonna leave it at 49. I think this looks great. If you can see, zoom in, before and after, just adds a bit more detail here, before and after. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed it and found it to be informative. Let me know down below if you have any questions or comments or tips to make my workflow a bit better. And if you're interested in the node trees, also let me know. I might start selling them for you just to make it easier for you to replicate the results that I always achieve with my node trees. And I guess I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.